Hey baby, where you been all my life? I would make you my wife, but I'm not one to marry.
So in the 6th episode of The Last of Us Season 2, we get flashbacks. This is an entirely flashback-oriented episode, which means we get a lot of Joel. So that will make fans of Joel happy, fans of Pedro Pascal. I've been hoping for this episode, or for something like this, because it has some of my favorite moments from the video game, and some stuff that was left out of the series so far. We actually get a lot of different important moments all packed into one episode, and I think it works. I still wonder if maybe like the Future Days song that Joel sings to Ellie should have been in the first episode. But I do like that it sort of ties together all these years in between when they get to Jackson, and then, when the night before basically Joel is killed at the dance and everything like that. Because we get the museum scene, which I still think might be my favorite part of the entire second game, when Joel takes Ellie to see this museum, and they see the dinosaurs, and they go and sit in the rocket ship. It's such a great moment, and it's great here too. It's really very emotionally poignant moment, and it shows because it shows them when they were happy, and when Ellie was still young and not pissed off at Joel, and before she gets into that rebellious phase that all teenagers go through. I know it only too well, both because I was once a teenager myself, believe it or not, and because I have teenagers. And that's a struggle. So I loved that scene, and it was a lot like, not exactly like, but a lot like the scene from the game, and I think it worked pretty well. It is interesting at the end, as they are leaving, she sees like the spore, like the fungus and the spores out in the forest. I'm not sure if they're kind of indicating that, if this ties into kind of how there were spores in the air in the previous episode, and we're seeing that that's happening elsewhere. I'm not really sure. Maybe somebody has some thoughts on that I don't have. And then each year that passes is a little less great. Ellie gets a tattoo, and she gets in a fight over Joel because she likes girls, and he's clearly not that comfortable with that, and thinks she's just being young and naive. Again, perfectly normal response from a parent, because a lot of times kids go through phases with their sexuality. It's totally normal. But, you start to see a little bit of the rift there. And she wants to go on patrol, and he finally takes her on patrol. And this is where we get, these other moments are not from the game. This is a lot of added stuff, a lot of added content. Unless, of course, I've just forgotten things, but I don't think so. For instance, we learn how, he moves her to the garage after they get in their first big fight, and because she's got a tattoo and she's making out with a girl and stuff. And then when she goes on patrol, they get a walkie-talkie notification that check the notifications on your walkie-talkie, But they're told that some other people are in trouble, and this leads them to what's his face, Eugene. Who has been bitten. Now, I don't know. They're doing this. They include this scene with Eugene and Joel and Ellie and then Gale to kind of explain why Ellie is so upset at Joel. She's been wanting to ask him about what really happened in Salt Lake at the Firefly place for a long time. She's working herself up to do just that when this all goes down. And Eugene is bitten, and he wants to go back to Jackson. He wants to be taken back to Jackson, where Gale can see him and they can talk. Sorry. I started to think ahead of where my words were. So Eugene wants this. Joel doesn't want to take him back because it's against like the rules, right? It's against their protocol. But Ellie wants to and thinks he has enough time. It's kind of funny because, like, in the last episode, it looked like Dina was just going to off Ellie instantly after she was bitten. But here we have this sort of drawn out debate over whether they should bring Eugene back to Jackson. Joel relents and says that they will, but he wants Ellie to go off and get the horses and meet them. And then he takes Eugene out and kills him. After he promises Ellie that everything's going to be okay. He promises her, just like he promised her that everything he told her about Salt Lake was true. So when she realizes that he lied and killed Eugene and never had any intention of bringing him back to see Gale, she is not happy about it. Understandably so. And so when he goes back and brings the body back, he tells Gale that they had no choice, that he went peacefully, that he says he loves her and all this. He makes up a nice little pleasant story for Gale. Again, perfectly reasonable thing to do. There was no way this guy was going to live anyways, and honestly, he might have spared her the pain of watching him turn and then be killed in front of her. And so I understand why Joel took this path. But then Ellie calls him out for it and says he's lying and tells Gale what actually happened. And that's why Gale's mad at Joel. And that's the rift between Ellie and Joel. And that's all of that. So now I'm trying to like, do I like this? Do I hate this? Does it work? It feels almost a little too on the nose that he promises her something like he promises her something that he knows he can't keep. Like he knows he's going to have to break that promise. So why does he do it? Like it's not like Joel is just this terrible chronic liar, right? And surely he knows that by lying to her face, he's going to cause problems between them. And also, I don't see why he couldn't just agree to take him back, and if he starts to turn, then he could shoot him. Or, honestly, if he's already such a huge liar, why he didn't just tell her, well, he started to turn and I had to do it. Maybe she wouldn't have believed that, but he could have tried. I mean, if he's already lying. But this makes her feel like Joel is just not to be trusted, and so that leads to why she's so pissed off at him and why in the beginning of the season she acts the way she does towards him. I think they probably could have handled this all a little bit better. Like, I understand why they want to put this in, why they want to give us this explanation, but I feel like it was just not handled quite as well as it could have been. Maybe just say, like, have him promise, then have the guy actually turn and have Joel have to kill him. Like, don't make Joel a liar over this. Make it so that he didn't really have a choice, but Ellie just doesn't believe him. I mean, that would make more sense. That would make Joel look like a better dude. Like, this just makes him look bad. And so then they have the scene on the porch. And it's been a long time since I've played this in the video game, so I'm not going to try to compare it or say whether it was effective or not. But it's a pretty good scene. What bothers me about the scene, and I think it was the same thing in the game, is again, like, she asks him to tell the truth, and he does. And he tells her what happened. And she asks him if they could have made a cure, and he says they could have. And that bugs me, because we don't actually know if they could have made a cure. Joel certainly doesn't know. There's lots of evidence to suggest that that was a crapshoot. And, I guess if I were in Joel's shoes, instead of just weakly, timidly telling her that they could have made a cure, I would have said, those guys were full of crap, Ellie. They were going to kill you on the hope and the prayer that maybe they would have come up with a cure. And to me, it wasn't worth it. There's still some good stuff in this conversation. Like, I do like that he's, tells her that, he did it because he loves her. And, if she were in his shoes, if she was a parent, she would know, And I think it's a sweet moment. It's good to see. She says, "I don't know if I can ever forgive you for this, but I'd like to try." That's nice. Although at the same time, I still feel like it's harsh, and maybe I'm biased as a parent. But like, if I save my child, and I know he's not her biological parent, but she's still his child. If I save my child because someone's going to murder them, like, I'm not going to apologize for that. I'm not going to apologize for that. And I don't, if my kid couldn't forgive me for it, oh well, like, I guess that's the nature of kids being stupid, because honestly, Joel's right. Like, you save the ones you love, especially in this kind of circumstance where they weren't even given a choice. I just want Joel to advocate for himself more, I guess, because I feel like I'm always advocating for Joel. Joel doesn't advocate for himself, and he did the right thing for the right reasons. A lot of people are like, oh, he did it because he's selfish. Yeah, I mean, I guess love is selfish in a way. But if you love someone, you care about them, and you have the opportunity to save them, then you do that. And I guess, again, this is just the way that this is portrayed in the show and the game really bothers me. The other scene we get, and I mentioned it briefly earlier, is the future days scene. Joel has has fixed up this guitar for her birthday. Every year, I've heard him mention that every year is like her birthday. So he takes her to the museum for her birthday, gets her a cake, does all these things for her birthday. And this one, he brings her the guitar, and he sings "Future Days" by Pearl Jam. And it's a nice scene. It takes place much earlier in the game, just like the scene on the porch takes place much later. Everything's condensed here. It's a nice scene, but man, it's not as good as the scene in the game. And that's just I guess that's also just partly because Pedro Pascal is not as good a performer as Troy Baker, who sings it in the game. There's a lot of that where you can start comparing like the performance of Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson to the performances of Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey. And I think Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey do a fine job, but the original actors for the game are better. And which reminds me, I did like last week's episode. I thought it was great that they have Ellie kill Nora, and she's very. But I have been thinking about, just the fact that Bella looks like a 12-year-old still does weaken those moments of rage and emotion, and it's hard to buy. It's just, again, I think it's very mean-spirited and shitty when people talk crap about the way Bella looks. I don't care how she looks in terms of like how pretty or not pretty or whatever. Don't care. But she looks so young and small that it is hard to buy her as this vengeful killer who can take all these bad guys out. And it's a good thing in a way that they cast Caitlin Dever as Abby, and she's small. Because if you cast someone that was as physically impressive and frightening as Abby in the game and put her up against Bella Ramsey, it would just be goofy. Like, there's no way those two ever fight, and it's a fair fight. And it was barely a fair fight in the game, right? Overall, I really liked this episode. Obviously, there were things about it that I've discussed that I thought were weaker than others. Obviously, I'm still kind of deciding whether I like the format of putting all these moments with Joel into one episode. I do think it works, like birthday to birthday to birthday. I think that works, and I think that it's an emotional episode that we really, really needed at this point. And it also punctuates the action between the end of episode 5 and the big finale next week. For better or worse, honestly, I think that there's been a lack of urgency this season, giving a 3-month time gap between Joel's death and when they leave. That hurts the urgency. Making Ellie and Dina so sort of carefree and lighthearted on their revenge quest kind of diminishes the sense of urgency. And it really hasn't been until the very last episode when they actually, have to face these frightening clickers. I mean, there was actually a scene in a previous episode also where they're in the subway and there's all those clickers and infected. Those are great scenes. I think they did them really well. But then there's just too many breaks. Like, the breaks work in the game because in the game you're playing several hours of like combat and fighting wolves and fighting infected, and then you get to a cutscene and there's like a moment of rest and of calm. But in the show, it's like the reverse of that. There's lots and lots of dialogue, lots and lots of moments of calm, and then punctuated in between there is an action scene, and then it's back to all the talky shit, right? So it's like it's the total reverse of the game, where you'll spend all this time in combat and then have some narrative stuff, and then all this time in combat and sneaking around and running away and all that. And I just think, like, to make it work on screen, you can't have that ratio change so much. I mean, obviously it can't just be Ellie killing clickers and stuff for the whole episode, but you also can't upset the pacing so much that, like, every time it starts to get intense, then they dial it back. And that's the problem with putting this episode here, is that you've had so many, like, the big action in episode 2 with the battle for Jackson and the killing of Joel, and then episode 3 is like completely deflated. All of that tension is gone, and it's just people deciding what to do. and then traveling. And there's just really not much there. And it just keeps happening through this season. Season 1 kind of also suffered from this, but I think it's maybe worse here. Even though I think the stuff with the actual infected has been really good, there's just way too much downtime. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. I don't know what my status of my finale review will be. I'm going to be traveling, and so I'm not sure if I'll have a video up. If I do have a video up, it's going to be like on my phone. I don't know. Or maybe I'll just have a late video for that. I don't know. It's going to be tricky just to even watch this episode in a foreign country, basically. So we'll see. But if I'm not punctual with that video, that is why. So let me know what you thought of this one and the changes they made, if you've played the game, and whether you think it works here on screen, and the whole way that they constructed sort of the conflict between Ellie and Joel here. And yeah, let me know in the comments. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Thank you for watching.
Oh, my sweet, sweet Virginia, I've been waiting for you to come down. I've been waiting all summer, and it's such a bummer that you went back to El Paso alone.